So the first 3 seconds for the last 100 years, since 1876, the seller talks. But we know from neuroscience, psychology, and every study on earth that the person talking is not in control. All publicity is good publicity. It's pretty interesting in this industry. There's a lot of publicity stunts. How many actual haters and enemies I actually have, it's hard to know. Repetition is the mother of skill. So the more calls you do, the more calm you'll get. I did 10,000 hours cold calls before I was 25. And then I managed big call centers with thousands of reps. So it's no better or worse. I've just done this for hundreds and hundreds of hours. So if you have an email and it says, 10x your revenue with AI, that's not going to perform. It's generic. You can put anyone's brand in there. So I use LLMs to get out of the white space, to create emails, sequences, to come up with ideas, but then I run heuristics around it, almost like bumper bolts. It's like anything you're doing, they're so used to hearing. So think in terms of pattern interrupts. Be creative, be bold, have the courage to be creative and artistic with this stuff, because most people won't. And
hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of In the Nest with Parakeet. I'm Cynthia Handal, GTM advisor for Parakeet, and here with me today is the one and only Justin Michael. He's famous for being the founder of the Justin Michael Method. He's viral on LinkedIn. We have seen his new book, The Cold Call Algo, which was recently launched. One of the top bestsellers for sales book on Amazon right now. One of the very few original sales influencers on LinkedIn. Justin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate that auspicious intro. I mean, I really try to do that, right? I try to take a contrarian view to everything that's going on in the industry and I don't know, speak my mind. So I get in a lot of trouble out there, but it's for a good cause, which is the elevation of outbound and technology powered sales, I suppose.
No, really excited to have you on. So let's jump into it. You've been called controversial, disruptive, and even reckless. Do you lean into that, or is it just how you think? He laughs, right?
Yeah, so the thing for me is most people haven't worked for themselves. There's 400 million small businesses, but a lot of people in B2B work for other people, and I respect that. So you have to work within the boundaries. For 20 years, I was a W-2. And, some companies you have to even go through legal and what you're going to say. But I can tell you the First Amendment's alive and well. It is a free country. I've never been shadow banned. I've been kicked off LinkedIn 7 times for other reasons, usually because clients hired me to push the algorithm to the edge. And it was normally just, they change it all the time with running automations and different applications, right? But to me, it's like I have been canceled multiple times and kind of, nailed to the stake. And I just sort of like got up the next day and kept getting clients and kept going, kept writing books. And I've written 5 books in the last 2 years. The number one thing people have a problem with me about is that I invited them to read my book, which I guess if you're Alex Hermosi and you have a muscle shirt and you do it for 100 million people, it's cool, but not for me. Other than that, I've taken a pretty hard stance on personalization versus relevance. And the other big thing I've done is I've kind of called out sort of WWE style other influencers, other authors. And that's been very upsetting to people because I'll say, hey, that technique doesn't work, or that author didn't write his book, and it's sort of like not okay to say those things. But nobody really defends the people that I take down, which is also very...
I saw the controversy of, not going to name for legal reasons, but obviously saw the controversy of somebody saying that they wrote a book that you decided that you didn't want to publish, and now X so-and-so is publishing that book without your permission. So I saw that went down last week, right?
Yeah, so we actually orchestrated that and we were behind that. So that was actually all staged feud, WWE style. So I hate to break that on the show.
I had no idea, but
Yeah.
It was definitely interesting because
Yeah.
I was looking at the post and I could see you getting into the comments and people fighting you in the post. And that's great marketing at its finest. It doesn't happen every day. I love that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could call what I'm doing Machiavellian. You could look at Roger Stone, who was behind the political campaigns of Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, Donald Trump. But all publicity is good publicity. And it's pretty interesting in this industry. There's a lot of publicity stunts. how many actual haters and enemies I actually have. It's hard to know. Like recently, I commented on the last 100 Josh Braun posts, and then we talked behind the scenes, and he was kind of cool with it, and then I stopped. So yeah, I think the actual vendetta is there's only a few people who truly hate me. And I've really just focused my campaign around 4 or 5 of the books that are legacy cold calling books that have just been around forever. And it's fueled a lot of debate, but ultimately the techniques are tested, they work really well. And at the end of the day, I'm just trying to help elevate sellers and help them, get more meetings and be more effective with their lives and their jobs.
And being such an outbound expert yourself, what do you think is broken right now? I can for sure say that what was working 3 years ago is not working today, and like everything changes. What do you think is so broken and outbound right now?
Yeah, so I'm 45 and I've been doing this since I was 21. I've been in sales doing outbound style things on phones for, 20 years, 25 years. I started in telemarketing. It took me 10 years to get to Salesforce, another 5 years to be like a top VP. I worked for LinkedIn, the Empire State Building. You can go to my Crunchbase and see all the roles I had. So I didn't even put pen to paper till I was 40. I already had 20 years in the seat. So I'm a little different than a lot of the other thought leaders in that regard. It's really strange because in 2021, I put out my first big book. I was like the case study in combo prospecting, but I put out this book called Tech Powered Sales. And in the book, I said, well, 70% of the top funnel is going to be automated. And what I see now is 3 trends. And I've been saying this on interviews. One, you can automate LinkedIn. You can use Expandy and Skylead, but LinkedIn's API is closed. So you don't get that much data out of LinkedIn. Number 2, email is really dying as a channel because every Gmail account or Outlook, you can only send 50 emails a day. So smart agencies are getting Clay and N8N and getting 15 domains and 3 emails each and warming it for 6 weeks and getting the ability to send hundreds and hundreds of emails. But not if you're a rep. Right? If you're one of the million SDRs, you're probably working for a SaaS company and you have one email address. So we don't have automation.
Ours
Yeah,
have an email account, and they're like, you have to reach out to leads via email. That's it. That's all you get.
there you go. So that's the limitation. So you're kind of throttled on the LinkedIn side. You only get like 50 emails. You can use open profiles, get 800, but you're kind of throttled with email, maybe 40% open. You're throttled with what you can do on LinkedIn. And then the phone is even crazier because they banned the use of AI. So if you ever get called by an AI voice agent, unless you put your name in a form and opt it in, it's illegal. So you can spoof my voice and cold call with an AI voice, but the FCC banned it last year here and in Europe and in Australia. It's still usable in Dubai, in the Emirates. But so here we go. So we can't automate outbound calling, we can't automate email, and we can't automate LinkedIn. And we were saying we had 70% in 2017, and I think we have 60% now. So we're able to automate less and less. So AI is a falsehood. It doesn't actually work. So Agent Force, Mark Benioff released it, hires 2,000 humans to sell it.
Saw that. That was insane, right?
So we're going to see 750,000 SDRs, and everyone, including Dave Delaney, thinks by 2030 it'll be 250,000. We're going to see 2 million SDRs. SDR is about to explode because of that bottleneck in regulation. Unless like Trump takes it down, yeah, it's really crazy. So I actually have predicted the most contrarian prediction of all. Is I really believe that inside sales, I don't know, GTM engineers, whatever this XDR motion is going to explode because we need humans in the loop to power the AI. And that's what Algo is about. It's not about the algorithm and the AI replacing the humans. It's about cold calling with an exoskeleton of AI, from the targeting to the triggers to the intent data to running calls. Are you doing parallel assisted? Are you doing power dialing? I'll give you one more point is that now companies like Tightnext.io, what they're doing is they're sitting and they're scraping and running algorithms over the top. So you give them 1,000 numbers, they say these 200 pick up because only about 20 to 30% of people even answer the phone. So like if I have someone's cell phone, why would I call them 4 to 10 times at a time with a power dialer? I would just call them 7 times in 10 days and go directly at them. So the book really explores the nuances of direct dialing, cell phones versus normal numbers. I mean, only 7% of the data in all the data platforms is cell phones. 50% of all the meetings are coming from fully navigated dials, phone trees, IVRs, and that's coming out of 10 million dials at a connect and sell. So we can't automate the top funnel. The phone is the number one channel. The last 200 teams I trained. It sounds like a time machine. People are like, why are you doing a cold call book? Like AI replaced it. Nope.
And then there's those companies buying out 3,000 inboxes and saying, like, we can get every single lead we can through email, right?
Yep. And yeah, the email volume is getting crazy. I have agency clients that are sending 150,000 emails a month for clients. Now, if you're in the enterprise, that's the whole TAM, the whole total addressable market. That's maybe you have 200 accounts. So it's just not going to work for mid-market or enterprise companies.
Their TAM's going to be cooked in like less than 6 months.
Could be even faster in some cases. Exactly.
And then they wonder why it doesn't work. They cook their TAM, they cook their inboxes. And you said before, I think in Cold Call Algo and just in like your general Justin Michael method, to survive the new era, you must become more human than ever. How can reps learn to be more human, specifically where, companies are telling them to use ChatGPT to answer emails, to train ChatGPT to overcome objections and rebuttals? How can we how can I as a seller survive this new era where my company's telling me to use ChatGPT for everything? What advice would you give us?
Well, I use all of those systems a lot, but my father was a linguistics PhD, and so I know a lot about writing. I speak one language, but I have a 60,000 word vocabulary, so I'm super literate. So I tend to have editors edit my books for mass consumption, and I have just a very strange upbringing around English. So where I would go here is I've created a science of heuristics. This is a big word. It just means shortcuts. It's from computer programming. Basically, I've created a series of laws or boundaries where if you produce something in ChatGPT, you then apply heuristics. So for example, if it sounds generic or vanilla or not specific, right? So if you have an email and it says, 10x your revenue with AI, that's not going to perform. It's generic. You could put anyone's brand in there. So I use LLMs to get out of the white space, to create emails, sequences, to come up with ideas, but then I run heuristics around it, almost like bumper bowls, to make sure that it sounds human and it kind of speaks the language of C level. So, some of that is brevity. If you make an email under 50 words, it converts 60% higher. Specificity, I can't tell you the amount of emails I read that are very vague and generic. Social proof and IP. If you have a technology moat or something that's very special about your tech, say it. You spent 45 million on R&D. There's a special algorithm, right? But the biggest two are brevity and pain, fear, emotional resonance. And what that means is that the vast majority of people that do prospecting, 99% of reps, probably 10 million reps, maybe 5 million, I'm not sure. They're trying to do like revenue, positivity, make money, maybe reduce costs. And the real reactor of email is pain and fear. People move away from pain and fear, which is why storytelling works, right? So it's really weird. There's two systems in the brain. There's an old system, the amygdala, the limbic system, the croc brain, and then the neo for new cortex. When you write emails that are logical, that are ROI focused and analytical, they hit the front brain and bounce. So you want to trigger with fear and pain the back brain. Now, when you cold call people, you trigger the back brain. Fight or flight, stranger danger, get off the phone. So with cold calling, you want to calm system one and then let system two take over. So the emails have to be pain, fear, and the calling has to have a method in the first few seconds to pattern interrupt and calm the prospect down. So we really analyzed the industry and we found this. We looked at books like Cold Calling Sucks and Fanatical Prospecting, and Keenan's Got Gap Prospecting coming, and there's a few more too. We really like Smart Calling by Art Sobchak. He's sort of like the OG.
I know about all of the other ones. And from
Yeah.
all the ones that you mentioned, the only one worth the while for me is Fanatical Prospecting. The other ones, I didn't even bother.
So Fanatical has a great foundation, I think, of just like the 90-day rule and making sure to get the process and volume and organization of it. But what we found was missing in the books, and Ryan Reichert's one, Outbound Sales from the Fluff. All the books are sort of 101, and it's what everyone does. So if you follow those books, you sound like 99% of everyone. We find the tactics to be B2C, transactional, and low status. What we wanted to do was write a book that was enterprise grade, enterprise techniques for multi-threading accounts with 5 stakeholders, 11 stakeholders. How do you go after that? There's really no book on that. So enterprise, strategic selling, and then indirect, because everything's sort of direct and B2C. I'll give you an example. You call a CFO of a major Fortune 500 and goes, this is a cold call, want to roll the dice? And they're just going to roll their eyes.
Like,
It's
shut
a
up.
cool gimmick. It's a great one. But then they're getting that 5 times a day. And they're getting stuff that's like Sandler remixes where it's like, you know, I
Or
mean,
this is a
there's,
cold call. Can I have 10 seconds of your time? And you're calling the CFO of a 500 Fortune company.
yeah, or it's like, you're going to hate me, but this is a cold call. So my whole thing about status is negative connotation. You're going to hate me. So the first impression is hate. I don't want to do that. Can I get 27 seconds of your time? Well, that means it is a very low ticket product. Can I sell you a $100,000 BMW for 27 seconds? Probably not. You want to roll the dice, being cheesy, gimmicky, you know? And so even some of the techniques in the book get crazy. You're like, hey, I bet my name's been floated around the company, huh? You heard my name, huh? Oh, I just talked to some of your team, but you didn't? I mean, just crazy like risks where you lie and like kind of subterfuge. And there's so
You
many
know what?
different.
You want to know what my opener is?
Sure.
So I'm like, hey, this is Cynthia from XYZ. It looks like you requested some information about our shockwave therapy products. You might not even remember it. Most doctors I talk to don't. Does that ring a bell? And they're like, I remember, or I didn't request info. And then I immediately change. Like if they say no, I'm like, no worries, no worries. I don't expect you to remember. And I just go in and ask them questions. It usually works like really well for me.
It's not bad because it's different. It's different than what people are doing. My opener that I finally figured out after sitting on the phone since 2007 is I say their full name. So I'm just
So you're
like,
like, hey, Cynthia Handal, how are you?
I don't say how are you because to me that's a natural. So I just actually say the full name and nothing else. So I'm like, Bob Smith. Yeah. Is this the FBI? Hey, Bob, just curious, who heads up your marketing automation there? And then
It's
he's
actually
like,
a great one.
I
I like.
am. But he usually says, oh, that's not me, it's Cindy. So I usually call someone, I would call above the boss, like waterfall technique, and then ask who's in charge of the thing. And then I love full names. So it's like, hey, Cindy Kowalczyk. She's like, it's Kowalczyk. Okay, hey, Cindy, just curious, who heads up your sales development over there? She's like, oh, that's not actually me, that's Bob. She goes, I do. Okay, what are you doing currently? How are you doing that? What tech stacks are you using? And then I get them to talk. And then I have like this whole process. And so that was called route, ruin, multiply. And then algo, ALGO, is ask, level, glitch, offer. And the whole idea is to move from permission based openers to just asking an open question. And here's the idea: one is like Aikido, and one is like Kung Fu. So if I interrupt someone, right, I trigger the fight or flight and I start talking over them with logic, and they're in an irrational fight or flight, they're going to just try to get rid of me. Versus if I say their full name and ask an open question, they start talking and the friction starts reducing. So the first 3 seconds for the last 100 years, since 1876, the seller talks. But we know from neuroscience, psychology, and every study on earth that the person talking is not in control. So what we all do as an industry is we call the person, interrupt, and talk. And that's the lowest status we can do. So I say your name and ask a question within 3 seconds, and you're talking. And that is baffling from a subconscious perspective. It's just a flipped
And it's
technique.
not the typical, reps are taught how to do BANT. So this routine is completely different than what reps on their first day. They teach them rat or bat or medic, right? That's the very first
Mhm.
thing that they teach them, and this is the framework that you have to follow, and this is what you have to do.
Yeah, so I started using that back in 2007 because I would call these executive directors. I was selling a SaaS. It was called inside sales. There weren't even SDRs in my neck of the woods. And every single company I talked to worked with this company called Blackbot. They had 100% of the industry. And I'd be like, "Oh, are you fundraising? What fundraiser are you using? Click. We already have someone. Go away." I couldn't get anyone. So I figured out the waterfall technique. I started calling the executive director of the nonprofit. I said, "Hey, Ed Hudnut." It's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Who heads up your fundraising?" It's like, "Marjorie does." So Marjorie had already hung up on me. I called her back like, "Hey, I just talked to Ed Hudnut. He gave me your name." It's like, "Okay, what is it?" And then I was figuring this out. So that's sort of like how I got through. And then I came up with this interesting way of getting people to admit to pain. So I call someone and they say, "Hey, I use Blackbot." And I would say, They're great. How's that working out for you? Because I found that if you find the incumbent or the competitor and you ask, what don't you like about them? What are the challenges? They're like, oh, I actually have black bod socks and I just went to the conference, and they just dig their heels in and reject you. So I get them to tell me the problem by asking them something positive. I call that step ruin. And then most of what I sell, most of my clients have a multiplier because there's 91 solutions to stack. So they just say, hey, don't rip anything out. Just plug us in alongside what you have to multiply the effectiveness. So I have a 3-part series of pattern interrupts. It's in Codex 7 and 13. I have all these guides and stuff, but then I've revised it. Because what happens is, think about it this way. Many people do permission-based openers, like Jerry Hill and Ryan Reiser and a lot of famous cold callers, and they get meetings and they get business. So it has to work. So in the book, we call it a hybrid PBO. We call it a permission-based opener that is high status. It's just harder because junior reps starting out are always like, oh, could I get your time? Could I get 10 seconds? And it's very like needy. But good reps like, hey, can I get a minute? And they're just like very matter of fact, and they can use anything basically. So it really is tonality that matters. That's it in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot more going on in the book, but I think like people get stuck in the first 3 seconds. And the other big place that gets stuck is trying to do some pain development. So I recommend everyone read Spin Selling because they don't probe from the top of the call. Like if I have any claim to fame, it's taking strategic techniques like spin and putting them up at the top of the funnel. And SDR is like, we're not allowed to do that. We have to just set meetings. I'm like, well, if you don't have a pain, there's no sale, no pain, no urgency.
And that's actually a great topic to bring up too, because you've trained so many reps and I know that you've trained thousands of sellers, even the best people on LinkedIn, like even those that say that they've hate you, I'm 100% sure they bought your courses and they bought your books. He smiles because he knows it's true. So how do you train reps out of like call fear or call reluctance? Because reps are expected like on their day one to just hit the phones, and when somebody's afraid, how do you teach them that?
Well, I think like there's a lot to be said. Like when I was 27, I worked for 2 founders who sold their company to Oracle, and I would always say, "Geez, I'm 27. Like I'm making commission. I'm calling these millionaires, and I'm totally intimidated." And they said, "Well, look, how you talk adds 10 years. So like your knowledge of the product, your acumen, your ability to demo." But then, like as I came up with these techniques, I thought of like the most venomous snake in Australia. It's just sitting there waiting for the animal, and it's very high poison. So we have a very low connect rate environment. So for me, it's like instead of trying to get the meeting or the 1990s sort of Brian Tracy, like get time, can I get Tuesday or Thursday? Because they'll say Thursday and they'll meet with you just to ghost you. That's why that route is so important. So just teach reps, AEs, and SDRs. Just ask them if they're the person. Call like a stranger lost in the city. Do this. Just be like, Bill, can you help me out? Like, there's 27 IT directors in your team. I'm looking on LinkedIn. Are you the person who does fraud analytics? And usually, out of the kindness of their heart, as a stranger, they're just like, put you out of your misery. Like, no, I'm not. It's Ed. Say, can I get your permission to call Ed now? Or we refer him. So if you're calling and your intention isn't to set the meeting, isn't to handle rebuttals, isn't kung fu, it's aikido, and all you're saying is, are you the person? It kills the pressure. Also, I teach people to leave voicemails most of the time. Now, if you use a technology like Connect and Sell or Titanx or Orem, you're going to start talking to 10, 15, 20 people a day. So you're really going to have to think on your feet. Repetition is the mother of skill. So the more calls you do, the more calm you'll get. I'm dead inside like a sharpshooter. Like I do these podcasts, I don't prepare. I do speeches, I don't prepare. I prepare never. I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of podcasts. I've done over 20,000 hours of cold calls. I did 10,000 hours of cold calls before I was 25. And then I managed big call centers with thousands of reps. So it's no better or worse. I've just done this for hundreds and hundreds of hours. When I write my books, I've done 500 hours of book writing. You would wonder where all the time is, but I'm just sort of a one-dimensional human. It's like an obsession for me to do this
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm not at your level yet, but that's something I tell my reps as well. Like it's like, remember, number one, you're the subject matter expert. They don't know what they don't know. So it's like you're the subject matter expert and you shouldn't be afraid. Like you should handle this as a conversation. Like your goal isn't to set the meeting, but your goal is to have a familiar conversation. That's it. Like if you're only thinking about the set or the meeting, it won't happen for you. Like your goal should be have a conversation. period. And I think that's where many sales orgs lose. I think they just lose it. And when it becomes like a spray and pray culture where their only goal is to teach the reps to go for the kill and go for the meeting. And that's where unqualified meetings happen, no shows, calls where there was no discovery, the lead is unqualified because of X and ZY reasons. So I'm curious to know, like, what should a modern outbound like sequence or playbook look like for you? What should reps be taught on day one?
Well, where do you start? I mean, I think like 30 triples a day is probably enough, like call, voicemail, email, blended combinations. I think if you have a good power dialer, maybe a couple hours of power dialing is enough. You got to figure out your connect rates and your math of sales. I think it's also important, like I have this prospecting pyramid, is that the higher up in the company you target, the slower and more hyper personalized it is. You wouldn't want to take all the CEOs and CFOs or CISOs or CIOs if you're in IT and throw them in a 27 touch sequence, right? So I have different methodologies for full-blown automated sequencing, lower down, semi-automation, personalization, hyper personalization, going one at a time. And you have to get good enough at this to know which set of tools and tactics to use. Usually you want to look at your book of business, pull the VIPs out and use a different technique for them than maybe the general population of who you're going after.
That's great advice. And you were one of the very first few people that started talking about AI in sales. How can reps balance automation and personalization? You just talked about, like, you're not going to hit the CEO with the same message that you're going to hit a VP or a CFO. How can they balance that?
Yeah, so the book is divided into 14 chapters, and at the end of each chapter, it has like an AI power play where it recommends the different tech stacks and different tools that you can use. So the big thing is, one, are you using artificial intelligence for your targeting, intent signals? Are you looking at the list to try to prioritize it somehow? And there's a lot of different intent vendors to try to do that, from major ones like ZoomInfo to tinier ones that achieve it in different ways. Then, like the scripts themselves, you can generate a lot of script patterns and ideas using prompts. It's really important you record your calls and listen back and have the AI listen back and have the AI give you the listen to talk ratio and read certain signals out of the calls. And then the follow ups to digest the calls and suggest the messaging. So we have a whole tech stack breakdown in the book. Like there's a giant diagram that runs you through all the different tools and technology. Me personally, I use ChatGPT a lot. I use Grammarly Enterprise because I'm writing books. In Justin Michael Method 1.0, which is called Sales Superpowers, there's a whole chapter on prompt engineering and different ways to prompt it. If you wanted to go to the next level, you can learn Clay, you can learn N8N. There's a
My
lot of
next question, I wanted to know
yeah.
if you used Play or if you used the sequencer.
So I've used a bit of everything, and these days I do a lot of strategy. So I'm advising a lot of agencies and advising people who are using the tools. So it's just about aptitude. Like mathematically oriented people who are more introverted sometimes love sitting in those clay tables and building for hours the personalization. Other people like sports, it don't mean to be generic. You could be sporty and introverted, but some people just love talking to people and they just want to bang the phones and just call people and just converse, right? And so you have to figure out your style. Now, I think platforms like Clay are going to go away. They're going to be codeless. I think eventually you're just going to have something where you just log into Outreach and you're like, give me a 16 touch sequence to the CFO. Here's one profile, find 15 like it, and write all the emails, and then boom. But you're still going to have to know heuristics, meaning you have to have your expertise in your product and you have to understand good from bad content. Right? Like, is it hallucinating? Do you have the right value prop? Is the thing you personalize cheesy? Like they like to hike or they love a certain hockey team. That's not enough to pull the deal. It's
I
very
hate
error
that type of personalization, like the one that goes like, "So I saw that you went to X and YZ school, and we have this in common." It's like that's super cheesy. I hate that.
Well, yeah, that works as sort of the cherry on top or the icing on the cake, but really you need, steak before the sizzle. So you really have to think of demand types, right? Make money, save money, reduce risk, satisfy a government regulation, or solve an irritation. And the biggest one is risk. And most people are make money, save money. So getting in front of enterprise executives is really hard. Jamal Reimer released a
I think
tool
one of the
called
hardest things, like enterprise sales, is, I mean, one of the hardest things. I have never sold into enterprise. I've sold into mid-market and SMB. And I I mean, when I was in real estate, I did sell into enterprise, but it was different. It was real estate. It's not software sales. So I
Mhm.
do believe it's one of the hardest things that people can actually get into.
Yeah, so Jamal Reimer has this tool called Wiser, WHYZER.ai, and it creates a point of view. So it reads the 10K, the 10Q. There's this thing called the Def 14 proxy statement, which is like the board meeting notes. But if you can go in there and find something really peculiar, and that's what I mean by making the machine sound human. My whole thing is I make my sequences look like text messages and ugly and short and funky grammar and conversational, and there's a lot in the codex guides. So I'm like, well known for these bizarre looking emails, which become standard. It's really weird sitting where I do because I'll go to a major influencer. I'll say, "Hey, you read all my books and you're using all my guides." And they're like, "No, I've never seen you." I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Well, you're using all my techniques." They're like, "Nah, I just read your book and your guides and it's just like everyone else." I'm like, "That's because I invented it in 2017. Like, I didn't invent the thoughts bump, obviously, but I'm the first person to put Venn diagrams and send millions of Venn diagrams. It's just never been done in human history." So it's kind of like Van Halen. Like, he wasn't the first person to do two-handed tapping on the guitar, but when you think of someone doing this on a guitar, you think Van Halen, right? So like I think a lot of the stuff that I popularized, like the thoughts bump, Gong came out and they proved the thoughts bump is bad. We have the data. I'm like, well, it's bad because your first email's bad. If you have a generic email and you bump it with thoughts, they get annoyed. But if the first email's good, they respond.
And you've
So
already lost
yeah,
beyond that first email. It's so
exactly.
irrelevant.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the technique now is the list is the strategy. You have to find a way to get human verified, channel validated data. I think Cognizant sells diamond leads. Zoom Info is getting into the game. Someone has pre called them. They say they answer by their cell phone or their landline. You have a working number. Titanix is awesome and is worth the investment because they're getting 25% connect rate, which is crazy because it's normally 2% or 5%. If you have low connect rates and you don't have those systems, be a voicemail machine. I do like 4 or 5 voicemails per prospect, and I've been known to do 40. This guy, Brian Wool, I called him like 40 times, and I later saw him at like a networking event, and he laughed. But that was kind of a Jeb Blunt thing. I think Jeb Blunt has a story in his book, and we said it in combo too. But, I've never had a restraining order from that or anything. I add value over time. But usually, if you start off to call someone until you catch them, they will pick up around touch 4 or 5 because buyers have a perfect system. If they never respond to the salesperson, you go away. And my whole thing is the honey badger is I never go away. So it's like a spider in the drain. Like, I get 100% response rate. I get take me off the list. I get no. I get
I do the
everyone
same.
responds.
I stop and I have a follow up list of people that were actively opted in. And until I get the word stop, that means stop. Before that, I can reach out to them for life.
Yeah, that's what it takes. And when they DNC, I respect that. So don't take this the wrong way. But I think it's like most people just don't follow up enough. I think the outreach data said they do 3 touches, and post step 12, there's 20% of the meetings. And I think the numbers get even crazier. Get a clean list. Understand if you have a clean list, you don't actually need a parallel assisted dialer. Don't go after cell phones. That's another myth because it's a very small sample. Most people protect their cell phones and don't let them get in those systems.
And just going into the cell phones thing, do you think with all of the changes that Apple, like I was thinking about it the other day, I didn't even realize it, like Apple now having the Google similar assistant thing, will cold calling still work the same way in 2026 or will it evolve into like something entirely different?
Well, I think you're going to need an AI approach to get past the iOS 26, 29, 30 screeners. If you use pure AI in the screener may have AI detection and block you, but you need a compelling event, some reason for them to talk to you. So it almost turns the cold call into like an email, but you still need a point of view. Sellers are just going to have to be better at crafting what those point of views are. But again, 20 to 30% of the population just picks up the phone and has held since the 80s. So I don't know. They're curious. My mom's 75. She just picks up her phone. She's curious. Like, I don't know if she's going to, if it has a screener, she's still going to pick it up. So she's going to be curious, like, what is
It's
it?
going to be like
Yeah. So some people are just like that.
that. I mean, I know that we're almost up at time. I do have two more questions and then a rapid fire.
Let's do
What
it.
What do you think is one of your biggest, hottest takes that you've dropped that blew up online? So many, right? But I want to know what's your favorite one, and do you still stand by it?
Yeah, well, one of the issues I have, and out of respect for just the politics of the show, some of the people that have cold call books never sold technology or software, and some have not made a cold call in 20 years. So it kind of pulled the card on people who sold uniforms, or they were a ski instructor or a blogger or a male model, and that's all great. I respect all the professions, but I think for you to be like going out and mass educating, you might want to do the thing that your book's about. So that kind of, I don't know, that upset people. How can he do it? And it's not necessarily a fraud. It's just, I think what I love about Art Sobchak, for example, is he's just been teaching cold calling for like 30 years. He still makes all his own calls to get his own business. He's just an awesome person and kind of the godfather. So yeah, we definitely support him. So that's one hot take. When I came out with personalization versus relevance, that seemed to upset quite a lot of people because people like Beck Holland were building all this cool personalization, and I find that the relevance works better. Trying to think.
What would you say is one thing all reps should kill right now in Outbound? Something that you see online, everybody posting about it, but it's a no-no and they should definitely kill.
Wow. I think the gimmicks in the openers and the emails. Like if you're writing an email that says "Hope you're doing well," that's a good corporate bro skit. That should be killed because everyone's trying to subject line test, and it's actually A/B testing around the subject line, the preview text, 18 words, and then it's all the cold openers that are like 1990s pickup. Like, you want to roll this is a cold call. You want to roll the dice. Did I catch you at a bad time? Can I get 10 seconds
That
of your
used to be
time?
me in the past, by the way.
Yeah, I mean it does work, but it's like anything you're doing
Now it's cringe. No, I know. I completely
that that,
agree.
that they're hearing, they're so used to hearing. So think in terms of pattern interrupts. And so if you're getting that hot book on Amazon, it's got all the different scripts, everyone else is reading that and it's saturating the market. So even if you don't follow my techniques or my verbiage, come up with something different that's your own. And that's the fear, to be really original and creative and different. That's why I love the Dale Dupree stuff with the crumpled letters and you know stuff that Stu Heineke does with the comic books. And he had a client. This guy Dan Walschmidt, he would send a sword, like literally $1,000 sword. I've seen these things. You can Google it, and he had like a 98% response rate. He sends a full sword to a CEO. Can you imagine with an script? So yeah, be creative, be bold, have the courage to be creative and artistic with this stuff because most people won't. And yeah, read all my books. Shameless plug.
Guys, and this is Justin Michael, and he's one of the best sellers out there. You should be following him on LinkedIn. Justin, I know you're super busy. I really appreciate you making this time for us. Where can listeners, SDRs, VPs of sales, CROs find you, follow your content, and dig into the cold call algo?
Yeah, I would just say if you just go to Amazon and put in Justin Michael, I have, 8 books now and some books getting released. I think for you, the Sales Superpowers really has all these like 17 codex guides, which I can send you, which are really helpful. And then this new Cold Call Algo book, those are probably the two best places to go. And yeah, I really appreciate reviews. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I don't really use a website or anything. I'm a bit underground with my style. Really appreciate the opportunity to share today.
Love it, guys. So you can find him on LinkedIn under Justin Michael. His book is on sale now on Amazon, Cold Call Algo, and you can also find all of his other books on Amazon. Justin, I appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, but I appreciate you so much. It was a pleasure getting to know you. We've texted and corresponded over the years, and it was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much for doing this for us today.
Thank you so much.